On the Lord's Day, when we talked about this passage in the latter part of Genesis 30, I made the statement that if your major takeaway from the Sunday morning message was that this was a story of sheep and sticks, that I had blown it, because we want our Lord's Day Bible studies to be about the gospel and the movement of Jesus Christ. However, here on Beyond the Notes, today I do want to talk a little bit about sheep and sticks. Welcome to Beyond the Notes. Okay, there are several things going on in the last paragraph of Genesis chapter 30. In context, Jacob and Laban, both of them prone to be deceitful and manipulative, have struck a deal, each of them believing he's worked to his own advantage. Now, behind the scenes, we know that God is going to favor Jacob over Laban in this deal, but Jacob and Laban think they've each rooked the other. The deal is that Jacob, in lieu of conventional payment, is going to just shepherd for about a 6-year period or oversee the flocks, the goats, and the sheep that belong to Laban. And when discolored little ones are born, they go to Jacob. And when conventional solid colored ones, white for sheep and black for goats, are born, they stay with Laban. Well, Laban begins by segregating all the different colored ones and sending them away for a 3-day journey. Laban believes that will assure that most of the little ones that are born in time to come will be solid colored like the parents he's left behind. Well, it doesn't work out to be that way, and we get a lot of multicolored and mottled and discolored little ones that end up going into the flock of Jacob, and Jacob bakes out really well. In addition, Jacob's animals tend to be stronger and healthier than Laban's. And when we get to the part of the passage beginning in chapter 30, verse 37, when Jacob is actually executing the tending of these flocks, he does a curious thing, that when the animals that he wants to be most successful having offspring are breeding, and the way they bred, I don't want to be crude about this, but the female lamb would come to the water trough, and she would be stationary and focused on getting water out of the trough, and that's where the actual breeding would happen. And what Jacob begins to do is he strips the bark off poplar trees, sticks from poplar trees, almond trees, and something the ESV calls plane trees, which is probably the oriental plane tree, or Platanus orientalis, if you want to get all scientific. He takes sticks from those 3 types of trees, strips some of the bark off, puts the sticks in the drinking water when the animals that he wants to breed most successfully are drinking water. And the result of that is his flock of healthy discolored livestock grows much faster than the flock of his father-in-law, who was trying to trick him all along. So what's going on there in that paragraph? Well, authors are divided, and there are 3 possibilities as this methodology of putting these sticks in the drinking water. One possibility is that he is just engaging in superstition. An author that I like wrote that this passage includes, quote, some weird livestock breeding techniques that Jacob borrowed from local magicians. That what Jacob is doing is just simply fiddling around with a local superstition that he got from some local magician. Now, the idea of engagement with local magicians probably comes from the fact that in the previous paragraph, Laban talks about learning things by divination. So it is the case, perhaps, that Laban's extended family, including some influence on Jacob, is consulting and consorting with magicians and diviners. And out of that, Jacob gets the idea that something magical will happen with these sticks. The text doesn't say that, by the way. The text only gives us the matter-of-fact statement that he took these sticks and stripped the bark off of them and put them in the water troughs. But again, it's a legitimate possibility. It's possibility number one, that there's nothing at all really going on here. God blesses it, but the root of the behavior is a local superstition / magical thing that really is not all that meaningful. Another possibility, number two, is that there is an overt miracle going on here, that the sticks were somehow blessed with miraculous power by the living God to accomplish miraculous things regarding the increase of the flock. That may be in view here, but the text doesn't say that. We have Jacob proceeding with this methodology, and the text tells us that he proceeded with this methodology, but the text doesn't say anything about God telling him to do that with the sticks. The text doesn't say anything about God doing anything unusual with the sticks. Even in chapter 31, where we are brought into awareness that there has been a dream vision from God to Jacob regarding the fact that the solid colored animals can produce multiple colored children. You and I understand that to just be the action of recessive genetics. It's a good thing for Jacob to be assured of, but it's not overtly supernatural. And there's nothing in the text to tell us that these sticks are doing anything overtly supernatural. That the text does seem to imply that there was some positive effect on the vigor of the breeding and perhaps the health of the flocks based on the adding of poplar, almond, and oriental plane tree sticks to the ewes' feeding troughs. And again, some authors simply say it's a superstitious behavior that Jacob was engaging in. One author that I trust hinted that there might have been some understanding of actual health benefits, and that made me curious because I had never read that before, so I did a little digging. And unsurprisingly, when it comes time to look for scientific insights into what's going on in the book of Genesis, our friends at Answers in Genesis, and I've put this link in the sermon outline from Sunday. I also can have this link, I assume, in the show notes for this podcast. I am told that's possible. It's an article called Jacob's Odd Breeding Program on the Answers in Genesis webpage. And before I get into the content of what this author says, let me read to you some of the footnote sources for his material. One article that he cites the article is entitled "The Effect of Different Levels of Populus Supplementation," that is poplar supplementation, "on the reproductive performance of ewes grazing low-quality drought pasture during mating," in the journal Animal Feed Science and Technology, an article from 2004. Another article that he cites is an article entitled "Edible Forage Yield and Nutritive Value of Poplar and Willow" in the journal Grassland Research and Practice. Another article that he cites is "Antioxidant and Anti-Inflammatory Activities of Platanus orientalis, an oriental plant endemic to the Kashmir Plains," in the journal Pharmacologia. My point is, I'm not a scientific heavyweight. The guy who wrote the article that I'm specifically citing may not be a scientific heavyweight, but he's citing sources that are scientific heavyweights. And here's the long and the short of it and the sources that he cites. Poplar trees include a chemical in their wood that, when introduced into the diet of livestock, produces up to a 20 to 30% increase in reproductive rate. And again, that's not some Sunday school teacher insight. This is from journals that address the issue of reproductive health in livestock, are saying, yeah, there's a distillate from poplar that really helps with that. It further helps with gestation and creates increased multiple births. Almond trees address a variety, or a similar chemical distilled from almond trees addresses urogenital diseases and disorders. And the oriental plane tree has a host of anti-inflammatory and gastrointestinal benefits. A common thread between all of these is the best delivery system to get the extraction that is most beneficial is to soak the wood in warm water. So let's think about that for a moment. A feeding trough for livestock in the Middle Eastern desert sun. Do you think that water's cool and refreshing? Nah, it's tepid as all get out at least. And so you introduce the wood into the vat of warm water. The chemicals are distilled and the animals benefit. In this case, I don't think there's any miracle at all. There's nothing in the text that says Jacob received any supernatural instruction to strip this wood and put it in the feeding troughs. I think his decades of animal husbandry experience taught Jacob how to breed better and stronger offspring, and the reassurance of God that the solid-colored animals left for him by Laban would produce the sort of multicolored offspring that he, Jacob, would get to keep is just the science of recessive genetics that Jacob would have known a little bit about from his, again, decades of observing, but God reassures him in the dream of chapter 31 that that is, in fact, going to go on here. You know, God certainly can punch through the way the physical universe usually behaves and accomplish overt miracles. He's done that. He does that. He has the right to do that. His word records numerous instances where he has done that. Miracle is one way the living God can operate. But in this particular case, I don't think we're looking at a miracle. I don't think we need to look for a miracle. We have the reassurance from God regarding the fact that solid-colored beasties can produce little ones that are not solid-colored, which Jacob would have already known, but would have been blessed to have reinforced by his dream from God. And a very, very smart livestock farmer who knew that the introduction of these certain woods into the warm water of the feeding trough would release chemicals with beneficial effects on the breeding of livestock. At the end of the day, that's what I think is going on in this passage. It's a fascinating story of the favor of God in the provision of his people as God uses these mechanisms over these 6 years to make Jacob a very wealthy man, using the things that Jacob had learned and had been assured of. But I don't think we have an overt supernatural miracle here. If we do, the text doesn't explicitly say it, and I don't necessarily think it has to be there. Anyway, the real story is the provision of God for the people that he loves. But the foreground story, well, sticks and sheep. By now, I hope that you're liking and subscribing. I hope you're sharing our podcast with folks that you believe would be blessed by it. And as always, I appreciate you a bunch and look forward to being with you again on the next episode of Beyond the Notes.